have money grow. Tractors, plows with flashing lights, backing up a two-lane.
Welcome back, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke in for Sean Hannity. This is the Sean Hannity Radio Show. You can follow me on Twitter at Sheriff Clarke, thepeoplesheriff.com, and my weekly podcast, theblaze.com/radio, The People's Sheriff. You can follow Sean at Sean Hannity and at Hannity.com. My next guest, closing out the presidential race. I wish we could have gotten more of them on, but, there's only so much time, and you got 17 candidates. I don't think any of the Democrats were going to come on with me. But anyway, next gentleman. I know him well. I need to lay that out there. Again, I'm not endorsing anybody at this time, but he is a friend of mine. He's more than just an acquaintance. Scott Walker is the governor of the state of Wisconsin. Before becoming governor, he was the county executive in the same county that I'm from, Milwaukee County. So we both came into county government at about the same time. One of the things I admired about Governor Walker is he has a great sense of who he is. He doesn't think he's the smartest guy in the room. He listens to people that might know a little bit more about him than something, like in the area of public safety. He left public safety decisions to me. He knew that I was the guy for that. I was independently elected to do that. I really appreciated that. We had some challenging times with budgets, but he always, did what he could. He was always a supporter of law enforcement. That continues to this day. Governor Walker, thanks for being on. And I know you're busy. You're in transit, but I really appreciate you being on. You recently issued an op-ed and in support of law enforcement, much like Ted Cruz did. And you two are the only ones, and I'm a little puzzled by that more people running for president, at least on the Republican side, who have traditionally supported law enforcement, but they've been a little silent. I don't know if they're walking gingerly around this issue or what, but you did, so I want to thank you for that. Tell me what prompted you to do that.
Well, it's just this growing frustration. And last month at the first presidential debate, they asked me a question related to that, and I mentioned my respect for you and that you and many other law enforcement officials had told me the key to addressing the issues of concern that many have had out there is good training, making sure that our men and women in uniform, when it comes to law enforcement, have the proper training, particularly when it comes to use of force. But I've seen a real void, particularly from our president, when it comes to the reaction that many have had that starts to put the blame on our police officers and our sheriff's deputies and our state troopers and others, when the reality is, at least in America I grew up in, we looked to the men and women carrying the badge as the ones that were the people we go to in times of trouble, the people we admired for standing up and putting their lives on the line. And I'm in Texas yesterday and today, and I got to tell you, one of the most repulsive things I saw in this past week was last Friday when a deputy sheriff, Darren Goforth, from the Harris County Sheriff's Department, just in the Houston area, was literally just pumping gas into a squad car, and some guy came up and put 15 shots into him, killed a cold-blooded assassination. And the sheriff down there said, for everything they can tell, the assumption is that this gentleman did so in reaction to the fact that nothing more than him being in uniform. And we need leaders at every level, local, county, state, and at the highest levels of government in our nation's capital, have got to speak out and say, enough is enough. The overwhelming majority of people in law enforcement in this country are doing the right thing every single day, and we need leaders to stand up and defend them and say, we got your back, because they have our back every single day.
One of the things I read your op-ed several times, because I look for, like what I said earlier with Senator Cruz. I said I look for daylight. Is what he's saying, is he leaving any daylight in there between what he's saying and is there any ambiguity? And I didn't find any. And you also went right at the President of the United States, who I have said, you may have heard me, he breathed life into this anti-cop sentiment that is going on throughout the United States. We played a montage earlier. I got sick of it, and I had to tell the producer here to cut it off. But one of the things he said that I found very disgusting, and it's why I laid this at his feet, he said, our law enforcement officers are poorly trained and have a fear of people who don't look like them. I was really disgusted in that. The next thing I want to ask you about, Governor, I was interviewed by the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel about you and my relationship with you, and they asked me about the campaign and what I thought. And one of the things I said, and they made it seem like it was something bad, but I think it was something that maybe you would even acknowledge. I said, Governor Walker's campaign appears to be stuck in neutral and needs a spark. And that was just my observing from the outside. I know nothing about running a presidential campaign. What's going on with the campaign right now?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I think the bottom line is that people want to see more of the person that you and I saw when we worked in Milwaukee County. They want to see more of what we did when we took on the big government special interest in Madison, in my state, in our state capital, and they want to see someone who's ready to wreak a little havoc out there and to take things on in Washington, to do the kind of bold things that we did at both the county and the state level. And I think that's the key up there. Early on, particularly in the first debate, I think a certain sense of being in the head of the polls and trying to kind of gauge where we should be at. But the bottom line is now, I think it is clear people want to see who's ready to take on Washington. I know when it comes to my record, everywhere I've been willing to think more about the next generation than just about the next election. Nobody would have ever told me to run for county executive in Milwaukee County, a county that's 2-1 a Democrat, yet we did it and won there multiple times and turned the government around. Same way with the state government. Nobody would have told me to do what we did when we took on the big government union bosses, and yet we won. We won that battle. We won the recall. We won the reelect by being bold, by being aggressive. I think now more than ever, that's what Americans are hungry for. And so we're laying that out there. We're laying out the details. After Labor Day, we're going to be laying out the next wave of our big, bold ideas to move this country forward. And I think that's what Americans are hungry for. And I think the closer they look at both our record and our solutions going forward, the better off we'll be. And we invite people to come to scottwalker.com and start to watch. Every time we roll one of these ideas out, they're going to see that we're not nibbling around the edges. We're taking things head on.
Well, one of the things that you know from your own experience, you had 3 elections in 4 years. You had the recall, and you survived all of that. Thankfully, I think anybody that counts you out is they're going to be in trouble because this is a marathon and we're still early in the game. I want to switch now, talking about how you differ with Jeb Bush on the dealings with Iran.
Yeah, there is a difference out there. Obviously, I'm very much opposed to where the president's at. Hillary Clinton embraced this idea of this Iran deal, which, by the way, is an awful idea. I mean, I still remember as a kid growing up tying yellow ribbons around the tree in front of our house during the 444 days that Iran held 52 Americans hostage. I just don't believe that Iran is a place we should be doing business with. And I know plenty of Republicans, as well as even some Democrats across the country, agree with us on that. The challenge I have and the difference I think there is increasing this race is between who is really ready to be bold on day one. Governor Bush, when I said I would terminate in day one, said that he didn't think that was right. He pushed back on it. Said he made a suggestion he'd wait a period of time. I don't know if it means it would be 6 months or a month or however long. But my approach is, if you know it's a bad deal, why would you wait? I don't need a bunch of people in Washington to tell me whether it's a bad deal or a good deal or somewhere in between. I know today, with the experts I've talked to across this country and around the world, this is a bad deal for America. It's a bad deal for Israel. It's a bad deal for the world. And the sooner we can terminate that bad deal, the better. I'm going to do it on day one. I don't need to equivocate. I know the right thing to do, and I'm going to start doing it. I'm ready to be president on day one.
One of the things that I also said in that interview from the local newspaper describing you, I said, decisive. I said, but he listens first. He'll gather all the information. He'll listen to his advisors. Like I said, he doesn't think he's the smartest guy in the room. And then he will make that decision, and then he'll stand by it. And that's one thing that I think is missing in Washington right now. And it isn't just the Obama administration. I think if you look at the Congress, you see a lot of indecisiveness. We were promised one thing after the 2014 election. We were promised that Obamacare would be defunded. We were promised that executive amnesty would be defunded. None of that happened. It's an uphill climb when you become the president of the United States. It's a lot more difficult on the outside or on the inside than looking from the outside. What's your position on the Obamacare situation?
Yeah, I think the key to this is it's not enough to just say you want to repeal it. I've actually got a plan called the Day One Patient Freedom Plan. I hope people, again, will go to scottwalker.com and look at it. The reason why I call it Day One is we're not going to wait. The very first day, send the bill up to Congress, and then exactly to your point, Sheriff Clarke, to make sure that Congress actually moves on it instead of just gives lip service, moves on it, because you mentioned it. A lot of people I talked to, including myself, are frustrated across America. We thought there'd be a bill on the president's desk, even though obviously we know he'd likely veto it. At least put it on the president's desk and fulfill the promises made last year. But to make sure that happens, bill sent to the Congress on day one to repeal Obamacare entirely. And to make sure they do it, I'm going to sign an executive order that same day, on the first day in office, that removes the special deal that President Obama gave to Congress, their staff, and their families to carve them out of the Obamacare rules. Going forward, Congress and their staff's going to have to live by the same rules as everybody else. I think once they realize the premium increases that many others have seen across America, they're going to start moving on our plan to repeal Obamacare and to put decisions about health care back in the hands of patients and families so they can control not only their health care but their own money when it comes to decisions going forward. We need to be ready on day one, and I'm ready to do just that.
Well, one of the things I do know about you, because we have a different kind of relationship, friends beyond just, associates and acquaintances, is when you say something, you can take it to the bank. And I think that's another reason why this Congress should do what they said they were going to do. They said they were going to defund it, like you said, get it to the president's desk. Governor, I only have a couple minutes here, but I wanted your take, because I like this idea, getting rid of the filibuster in the Senate. Why don't you explain that? I only got a couple minutes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. Everywhere across America, if you go to any state house, simple majority in either chamber in their state legislature. To me, it makes no sense that people say, oh, these things are tied up because a super majority is needed to pass things. It's 51 votes just about everywhere else in life. To me, there's a check and a balance between the House and the Senate, check and a balance between the executive and legislative branch. If it takes 51 votes to repeal Obamacare and put in place a plan that puts patients and families back in charge of health care, I say go ahead and use it. Forget about the tradition out there. It's not in the Constitution. It's not required by the Constitution. Do what's right by the people of America. And I'm going to push it not only on Obamacare, but on a whole bunch of other issues.
Well, here's another reason why I kind of like that idea, and I realize that would be an uphill climb because it's up to the Senate to change that rule. But Harry Reid did it. That's kind of how they got Obamacare through. That's how they got federal judges appointed to the D.C. Courts, and they're liberal activist judges. They stacked the courts out there. This nuclear option, that's what the word I was looking for, that they were not afraid to use, and they did it to get some things through. And then when the Republicans got back in, they went back to the old way, and then they look at us and say, well, there's nothing we can do, on and on and on. Governor, I want to thank you for being here with us today. Say hi to your family for me, and stay the course. I know you're grinding it out, and good luck to you as we move forward.
God bless you, and thanks to all the men and women who not only work for you, but work for law enforcement across America. We got your back. Thank you for having ours.
Governor, it's a pleasure to serve. Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke, your host today. That was Scott Walker, presidential candidate. We'll be back on the other side of the break.